is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Who's open for three? Angle left takes it and makes it. Fousseyni Traore. And listen to the Cougar Nation.
Every Monday night, we break down the last week of BYU basketball and look ahead to the Cougars' prospects for the postseason. Cougar Nation. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
Cougar Nation, welcome into the show today. Matt Baiamonte and Mitch Harper. BYU basketball knows where they're going. It's not Salt Lake City in the opening round, which is unfortunate. They're heading to Omaha as a 6th seed. We'll be breaking that one down as we look forward to this week. March Madness is here, Mitch. We have arrived, and BYU is in the field.
It's a special time, Matt, and BYU basketball should be excited at the moment because – getting to the NCAA tournament is hard to do. It's a field of 68, and even though you're in the Big 12 Conference, getting into this bracket is difficult. So for BYU to be in this spot and be here, it's a special moment. It's one we're celebrating, but now they got the chance and the task to actually win and create some damage in this bracket. And I think, there's a path here for BYU to do that. We want to hear from you, Cougar Nation, because this is your show. This is the moment you've been waiting for all BYU basketball season, is to be in the NCAA tournament. Give us a call, 801-575-8255, if you want to sound off on the seed, on the Sunday play, the no Sunday play, the path to the Sweet 16. Call in, 801-575-8255. And we're curious, how confident are you that this BYU team can make the Sweet 16? Let's dive into our takeaways.
Cougar Nation takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
All right, a lot of thoughts, a lot of takeaways from Selection Sunday yesterday, Mitch. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. I was driving to a park with my kids. My wife is watching on the phone, and we're going through the East bracket. UConn, the number one seed. You're like, okay, there's no way BYU is getting in this bracket. She's like, BYU. I'm like, where? What are you talking about? They're 6. I'm like, I was speechless. I could not believe it. And it was clear, I think one of the biggest takeaways, Mitch, from Selection Sunday play, BYU not playing on Sunday, it definitely hurt BYU when it came to their seed in this year's tournament.
It definitely did. And, BYU is one of the trickiest programs to put in the bracket. And I know you're probably thinking, what makes it so tricky? But it's trickier than ever because – well, it's always been you only have half the bracket available to you because you're not available to play in the Friday, Sunday regionals. But then also now you have the dynamic of you're in the toughest league in America that pumps out 8 bids to the big dance, and you're trying to avoid round of 32 rematches. And you go, where do you place BYU in this field? It's tricky, and it's a self-inflicted deal. It's just frustrating because you did think that by being in the Big 12, the NCAA tournament will make it work because BYU was the 17th overall team, the highest rated 5 seed in the field, yet they get a 6. And that's a pretty big fall. It's one thing if you're the lowest rated 5,
right? But
you're the highest rated 5 seed and you get a 6. And I think that's where it's a little bit discouraging. And look, people will say the seed doesn't matter. It's about the matchup. And we'll dive into that matchup with Duquesne coming up here a little bit later this show. But 6 seeds show that you don't get to the Final Four. There hasn't been a 6 seed reach the Final Four in 32 years. You're almost as likely to go to the Final Four as an 11 seed as you are a 6 seed. So it's a tougher path than, say, the 5 seed where 2 5 seeds last year reached the Final Four.
And the thing that bothered me, too, is Gonzaga gets bumped up into that 5 seed spot.
Right.
And here's the thing.
Of course, Gonzaga.
I know, you just can't get away from Gonzaga. What I don't understand is they get bumped down because they don't want to have a rematch with Kansas. Kansas will be playing in Salt Lake City as a 4 seed.
And it funnels into the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Midwest region.
Fair, but move Kansas around.
Yeah.
They have no restrictions. They could have played in any of the spots that the 4 seeds were playing in, and yet it's BYU that takes the punishment because of the Sunday play. And that was unfortunate, but it does lead to takeaway number 2. They've got a favorable opening matchup, and it's not a terribly difficult path to the Sweet 16, Mitch.
It's not. You're going to open up on Thursday morning. You're going to hear the call right here on KSL News Radio, only on over the air, by the way, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM. BYU versus Duquesne, 10:40 a.m. tip, Mountain Time. It'll take place in Omaha, Nebraska. The arena that they'll play in is home to the Creighton Blue Jays. But, Duquesne is coming from the A-10. They're the A-10 tournament champions. They won their conference tournament.
They're playing good ball right now.
It's kind of a classic East versus West sort of style where, out West we typically are known for our high-flying offenses and up-tempo attacks, whereas Duquesne, they kind of want to muck it up and defensively get after it on the defensive end. Top 30 adjusted defensive efficiency metrics this season. So Duquesne's a good team, but this is one that BYU is going to be the favorite, and they should be because they're the better team. Like, if this was a game played in December, no one's batting an eye about BYU and Duquesne tipping off, but because it's March Madness, it gets a little more tension because anything can happen in this month.
And if you want to watch it, too, it'll be on True TV. Mitch has a great breakdown on KSLSports.com of all the little tidbits and things you need to know so you don't miss a second of the BYU Cougars in the NCAA tournament. Another takeaway, look, we might be getting too ahead of ourselves here, but if they win that opening round, there's a potential round of 32 against Illinois. That's a team that just won the Big Ten championship. But and they've got some really good guard play. They've got some outstanding scores of the basketball. But Illinois, to me, doesn't scream unbeatable.
Right.
I think that's a winnable game. If you win that one, and again, a lot of ifs here at play. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. A Sweet 16 rematch against Iowa State. What do you think of that path forward where the Cyclones could be meeting you in the round of 16?
I love it. I think this is a great draw for BYU. And I understand the frustration about not playing in Salt Lake because I'm telling you, if BYU had got in Salt Lake, they're getting the Sweet 16.
For sure.
BYU fans, Cougar Nation listening,
opening round, though, for Gonzaga is tough.
Oh, yeah. McNeese State, Will Wade, Heath Schroyer's the AD there. That is a 30-plus win team. I don't care who you are, what league you're in. You win 30-plus games, you are a dang good team.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay avoiding McNeese State, but at the same time, I just think that being in Salt Lake, you would have
the home court
advantage. I feel confident they're getting Sweet 16. But, you're right. I mean, Illinois, they haven't been to the Sweet 16 since 2005. BYU's had a more recent Sweet 16 appearance than the Fight in the Illini. They might be tense in that spot if they meet in the round of 32.
So it's what, Darren Williams?
Darren Williams, D. Brown, former Jazzmen were lining it up for the Fight in the Illini. So, yeah, I like the draw for BYU, and I think there's a good path to make it a run. I mean, if BYU plays their best basketball, Matt, BYU can get to the Elite Eight and face off against UConn. I believe in that. I do. This BYU team is good. I mean, you're the 17th overall team of the bracket, and this was Mark Pope on being proud of being that top 5 seed.
The NCAA section committee put out their 1 through 68 list, and we were 17, so we were the number 5. And so I'm super proud of that. That's a really incredible accomplishment for our guys. And, the seeding worked how it did after that. And like I said, every single team you play in this NCAA tournament is going to be great. So we're just excited to have a chance to go play.
And that's a great point by Mark Pope, is that even though the name Duquesne doesn't register much of a feeling for folks out here in Salt Lake and in Provo, but, they won a tournament. They're coming in with an 8-game win streak. They haven't lost since February. I mean, this is a team that's on a roll right now, so it's going to be a tough out. It's going to need a complete 40 minutes for BYU to get this win. Let's get your phone calls, 801-575-8255. We'll get to the phone lines coming up after the break. Weigh in on our question, how confident are you that BYU can reach the Sweet 16, or any just general thoughts you have about this BYU team and its draw in the NCAA tournaments. Cougar Nation, Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte coming to you live from Provo today. We just got done with BYU football practice, but we're talking Cougar hoops as it's March Madness, and we're taking the break. We'll talk more Cougar hoops on the other side.
BYU fans, join me, Tim Hughes, and Amanda Dixon for stories that affect our jobs, taxes, and families. Utah's Morning News, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Thank you, Tim. It's Cougar Nation live here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte. It's your show, Cougar Nation. Hey, this is hopefully not the penultimate show. Hopefully we got a couple more shows in the can here on Cougar Nation every single Monday. We don't want this thing to end, but this is the show for you where you get to sound off on BYU basketball and make your voice heard. 801-575-8255. Call in, weigh in on this BYU team and the run they can potentially make in the NCAA tournament. We got a caller right now, 801-575-8255. Linda on the show. Linda, how far is BYU going to advance in the NCAA tournament?
I hope all the way. I really do.
What gives you hope that that's going to happen?
I just think that we've played real well during the season. I know we've lost some, and we lost the last one, and maybe we'll go. I think we'll go anywhere from Sweet 16 to Final Four, or hopefully to winning it. I'd love to see that. And I was really impressed with their attitude about. They didn't seem real concerned that they didn't get a 5 seed or in Salt Lake, and I was really impressed with the way they just took it. You know, they were just excited to go to the NCAA tournament.
Thanks for the call, Linda. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
Good stuff. Good stuff from Linda, as always. And I think that is a good point, too, is I'm sure there was some disappointment with the 6 seed, Mitch. You just got to put that away. Yep. Now it's about, like you said, matchups. It's about playing your brand of basketball. That's something I love about this team, too, is that they have a clear identity. Just lean into it. Do what you do. It's not so much about the opponent. It's about taking care of the ball. It's about making threes. It's about playing good defense. You do that, you can beat anybody in this field. I filled out a bracket yesterday, and it's hard because there's so many teams that are capable of going to the Final Four, and yet there's not. You look at UConn as a team that might be an obvious path to win it all. Mm-hmm. Only 4 of the last 15 teams that have won a national championship, Mitch, have even made it to the Sweet 16. It's not often. It's not often that teams repeat. The last team to do that was Florida, and that was a long time ago.
2007.
Yeah, so the field is wide open for anybody to make noise in this tournament.
I love that. And, again, Cougar Nation, we want to hear from you, 801-575-8255. Do you feel confident that BYU can make a run to the Sweet 16? Because I got to say, BYU has not been in the round of 32 since Jimmer Fredette. And the last 2 times that they've been to the second weekend, the Sweet 16, they had the best player in college basketball, Danny Ainge, Jimmer Fredette. It's hard to win games in this NCAA tournament. You have to win at least one. And let's dive into our takeaways, or our trending up and trending down to size up more about BYU's potential path in the NCAA tournament.
Cougar Nation, trending. What's trending up and what's trending down this season?
This BYU team has just got to play loose, and as you noted, Matt, lean into who they are. And for me, I'll start things off. Trending up for BYU, they bounce back and in a hurry. They do not let one loss turn into 2. They've got 4 consecutive games this year where they bounce back and won the next game. And you hope that becomes the 5th after the loss to Texas Tech last week, which I think left a lot of Cougar fans and someone like myself watching that thing courtside maybe raised a little bit of doubt, but still I do believe in this team and their resilience. I think they bounce back in this one, and I think they'll have a quick turnaround. What's your trending up?
Health. I believed this before the Big 12 tournament, and I'm sort of glad it played out. Ask me this question next week, depending on what happens this weekend. But I like that this team is going to have a week off. And Ali Khalifa had a little ankle injury in that loss in the Big 12 tournament against, gosh, how am I already forgetting? Texas Tech. Geez. So I've been looking at so many teams on this bracket. I'm forgetting teams. Anyways, he's got to be healthy. This team needs to be healthy. I like that they had just a week off. Now, maybe there's a little concern that you'd be a little rusty to start, but I'd rather have that than have played 4 games in 4 days and be banged up going into this tournament. So I like the way that this team's health is trending currently.
And with Ali Khalifa, Mark Pope did tell BYU TV today that he expects to have his full roster available on Thursday. Ali Khalifa's been dealing with a right ankle injury that he suffered against Texas Tech. It was pretty swollen. I mean, it was, and he had admitted that it was painful, and that's why he sat out that second half. But he should be able to play. I mean, is he going to be 100%? Probably not. But he's going to be able to go. And I feel like BYU's offense is at its best when Ali Khalifa's on the floor. And that's not a knock at Foose. Foose is outstanding. And it's kind of this unique dynamic with BYU where I love the kind of the enforcer role and the ability to get baskets in the paint that Foose provides. But part of you feels like the true identity, the true essence of this team is on display when Ali Khalifa is part of that 5-out look that BYU brings on the floor when he's there. So Ali Khalifa is an important piece if BYU is going to make a run. What's trending down for me, I feel like there's not much that I feel like it's just, oh no, like if this happens, it's doomsday for BYU. Like I could go to the 3-point shooting after Texas Tech, but I think they're going to bounce back. I do. I think they're going to hit 10 threes against Duquesne at least. I really do. I think BYU will have a nice bounce back performance. I think just what's trending down is always just the fear of the March Madness in the NCAA tournament. Now, none of the history matters to this team. Like BYU's failures don't matter to this team, and honestly, I don't think any of these players really care about BYU's shortcomings in the dance, but it's just one of those stages where you lose to this Duquesne team, it could really negate some of the good things you did build this year because of that logo and because of the seeds. You better win this game because it could be a real bad look for BYU because no one looks at Duquesne and says, that's a great team. They're getting an 11 seed almost because it feels like the committee was so fed up with scrubbing the bracket and because of all these bid thieves are just like, just throw them in the spot we were going to put VCU and say, let's call it a day and we're done with this. So you better win this game, and because I feel like that could be a real sour note on what's been an epic season for BYU.
Trending down for me, Mitch, the NCAA selection committee. I just could not believe they got the 17th overall seed in the committee's eyes, but yet they get a 6th seed. And here was Coach Hope earlier on BYU being the only team that was not seeded correctly based off that 68-team ranking.
It seemed like a significant bump. You know, you would think if it was a no Sunday, you know, you would think there's going to be 1 or 2 Saturday 5 seeds. But, you know, I think out of the top 36 teams, we're the only team not seeded correctly based on the NCAA, the selection committee's list of how they rank teams. But again, guys, the only thing that matters to us is we're in this thing and we get a chance to go play, and we're playing against a great team, and we're going to try and go play great.
He goes on to say one of those 5 seeds is Gonzaga playing in Salt Lake City. He did have a comment on BYU not being able to play inside the Delta Center.
I was actually really excited about that. I thought that there would be a five seed in there. And like I said, we were the number 1 5 according to the selection committee. Mostly, I'm just disappointed for our fan base. I think it would have been really special for Cougar Nation to be able to be there in that gym. So certainly kind of had hoped that that's where we would end up.
I feel bad also for the Cougar Nation, members of Cougar Nation that bought tickets, and now they're kind of torn. They're like, well, I don't really want to go to these games in Salt Lake. I mean, it's still March Madness, but you're like, I want to watch BYU and maybe enjoy the rest of the games. I don't know if I want to go to the Delta Center and watch those games. But, I mean, that's the challenge of March Madness. I mean, you're kind of forecasting. And the nice thing about BYU is you can kind of zero in on the certain cities that they could play in. As our producer Nate Slack informs us that he sold his tickets last night. So good on you, Nate, getting yours on the secondary market. I'm sure Arizona fans will gobble up some along with Gonzaga fans as well. But, I just think that would have been epic to see BYU in the Delta Center because, oddly enough, Matt, the last time BYU beat a single-digit seeded team in this tournament happened in Salt Lake. That was in 1991 at the Huntsman Center. So having the home crowd behind them would have, I think, really helped. And almost I would have felt confident saying lock of the century, BYU's getting the Sweet 16. But, hey, it wasn't to be. Now you got to go make it happen in the East region.
I need to move on from it, but I just can't figure out how that didn't happen. They're the 17th overall ranked team in the committee's eyes, and Salt Lake is sitting there for you.
It's totally Sunday play. And even Clark Kellogg from CBS, he noted the committee chair saying Sunday play played a role. And they are not going to make any sort of movement for any team that's similar or higher than BYU. BYU's going to have to take the hit. And, again, it's a self-inflicted deal. But it's
bull crap when you're the top seed on your seed line. That's the problem.
You just wish that there was a feeling of you played in the toughest conference in America. We're going to make it work for them. BYU played a good schedule.
There was nothing to make work. You move Kansas somewhere else, and BYU gets the 5 seed in Salt Lake.
In this whole gaming the net system from the Big 12 allegedly, No. BYU played a good schedule. They beat the ACC tournament champ. They beat some teams in the Pac-12. I mean, BYU tested themselves. They are battle-tested going into this NCAA tournament.
We can't. That's not a valid argument anymore because teams like the Big 12 and the SEC and the Big 10, they play harder and more conference games than other conferences do just by having more teams in the conference.
Next year, BYU's going to play 20 conference games.
They shouldn't play a non-conference.
Why would you load up with 11 tough non-conference games?
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, news, traffic, and weather coming your way. We'll be back with more. Taking your calls, 801-525-575-8255. We'll get to some of your calls on the other side.
Just like Cougar fans come together for BYU basketball, the community gathers around KSL each morning for important news. Listen tomorrow between 5 and 9 to KSL News Radio.
Cougar Nation, live from Provo. We were here watching some BYU football practice. I have a beautiful view of Y Mountain right through this window. It's just a picturesque day down here in Provo. It's fantastic.
It really is. Tomorrow's the first day of spring, right?
Is it?
I think so. And just beautiful weather. I'm in a floral, flowery shirt. It's good times. The vibes are immaculate, and hopefully those vibes continue for BYU basketball. I know one of our callers tried to uplift the vibes. That's Jason from Eagle Mountain about
BYU baseball.
BYU baseball, but we're talking BYU hoops right now. Like we'll get to that down the road.
They're in the NCAA tournament. It's been I'm trying to think just off the top of my head, 7, 8, 9. You would know off the top. I mean, I know they played a couple years ago, but it didn't feel the same.
Yes,
it was the first tournament back after COVID-19. Right. It didn't have the same feel. This is the NCAA tournament in all its glory, and the last time they did this was 15?
15, yeah, the first 4 against Ole Miss, and then before that, the last time BYU played on the traditional
14.
Thursday round of 64 was 2014 against Oregon, and that was another classic Sunday deal where it's like, well, because of your Sunday stuff, we're going to give you a rematch against Oregon, a team you lost to in the regular season. This is a special time of the year, and again, you have to cherish these moments because you just never know when you get to go back to the dance. Now, the opportunities are going to be greater in the Big 12 because of the opportunities in Quad 1 and Quad 2 that you get, but you can never assume you're just always going to be good and it's always going to level up. So you got to capitalize when this moment is here in front of you. And I said this last week, Matt, and I'll say it again. I'm telling you, if BYU can get at least just one win and play well in this tournament and not have any blowout losses, this is a team Mark Pope wants to focus on roster retention in the offseason. They can be a preseason top 25 team next year. They're going to be better. I really believe that. Even if you lose Jackson Robinson, Spencer Johnson's going to be gone, but this program is built for some long-term success. But I feel like the next hurdle, the next climb, the piece is to win an NCAA tournament game. Mark Pope hasn't done that yet as a head coach. He never got a chance at UVU. He's 0-1 at BYU, and that one appearance at BYU against UCLA was not pretty. And that was in, as you noted, the COVID year in Hinkle Fieldhouse, and BYU got outclassed. And it was like, wow, were they ready for this big stage? BYU is the better team on Thursday against Duquesne. Tip-off at 10:40 a.m. coming up on Thursday inside Omaha, and I'll be there at the arena to have you covered on KSLSports.com. But they got to capitalize on this moment because I think it could lead to a lot of narrative builders, preseason top 25 talk. Like, that's what's in front of BYU if they can get this win because I think better days are ahead for the program.
We're taking your calls, 801-575-8255. How confident are you, Cougar Nation, that this BYU team can make the Sweet 16? We'd love to hear you sound off on the selection committee if you have any thoughts on that and this team at large. 801-575-8255. Join us. Get your thoughts on the air before it all begins on Thursday with that fun first round. How far do you think this team can go? Can they make it to the Sweet 16? How confident are you, Mitch?
That Illinois possible matchup in the round of 32
is tough.
Scares me a little bit. Yeah. Watching them in the Big Ten tournament championship game on Sunday, they've got a really good offense. And I just feel like that's a game that would be a tough matchup for BYU. It feels that way. I would love BYU to be in that spot to see how it plays out. Even more, I would love to see Morehead State pull off the upset against Illinois. I would like that a little bit more. No pun intended. But I feel like BYU, I feel very confident they'll get to the round of 32. I'm not confident they'll get to the Sweet 16. Because, look, maybe I'm just resorting too much to history, but I just feel like BYU basketball says that you have to have the best player in the land to get to the second weekend. And so I just feel that BYU's got to get one, and if they can get that one, everything else is house money. You go into that Illinois game, if you do get to that spot on Saturday, you play loose. You just let it rip, man, because there's nothing to lose. You were once the preseason number 13 team in the Big 12. No one believed in you. And you've got to this point and exceeded everyone's expectations. Just get that one, and everything else to me is gravy. I just feel like I just want to see the round of 32, and then let's see what happens after that.
It's a coin flip for me whether or not they can get to the Sweet 16. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic they will. I wouldn't say I'm pessimistic they won't. It really comes down to the three-point shooting. This Illinois team led by Terrence Shannon Jr., a fifth-year guard, started his career at Texas Tech, second year now at Illinois, averaging 23 points a game. In some of these painful losses this year, Mitch, one of the common themes is the opposing team has had dynamic guard play that BYU has not had an answer for. Think about Pop Isaacs. Think about some of those guards for Iowa State that came alive in that loss on the road recently. So it's not a great draw to have Illinois. However, I've never felt like this Illinois team was great. In fact, outside of Purdue, is there a great team in the Big Ten? You could make a case with Purdue's lack of success in the tournament that they're not a great team, even though, again, they're a number one seed. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure. And I think the other thing that brings me a little pause and concern is this is a team that has a clear identity from the three-point line, and I love that. It's a lot of fun to watch. However, they're not a terribly consistent team from the three-point line. They're capable of knock down 14 or 15 and beat anybody, but the next week they're capable of making 7 and shooting sub 30%. When they're sub 32%, Mitch, they're winless on the season. So that's very much in play. Can they repeat that multiple games in a row? I don't know. But it's not out of the realm of possibility, which makes it fun.
I feel good about Thursday, though, and I feel like BYU, they've got to control the pace, get up tempo, get into transition against Duquesne. You know, looking at Duquesne's team, they've got some talent. Of course, I mean, to get to this point of the season, to be in the NCAA tournament, you've got to have talent. Their leading scorer, Day Grant, 16.7 points per game. Feels like BYU's faced a lot of guys named Day. I didn't know that was such a common name, Day Grant. They've also got a Fusene Drame. He's averaging 6.7 points per game. He's their leading rebounder as well with 5.7 boards. It's also interesting of note in this one, and I'm curious to get your thoughts if this has any bearing. Our producer, Nate Slack, in our Cougar Sports Roundtable up on KSLSports.com today, he expressed a little bit of concern about this, but Duquesne's head coach announced that he is going to be retiring at the end of this NCAA tournament run for Duquesne. Keith Dambrot is going to be retiring. Extra motivation for the Dukes? Are they going to play inspired one last ride for their coach? Does that concern you at all?
I'm sure they will. It doesn't concern me. I'm much more concerned about BYU. If they don't shoot it well to start, does that affect other parts of their game? Because that's exactly what happened in the loss against Texas Tech. They were getting good shots. They weren't falling. And I felt good. Even though they were down double digits early, I'm like, it's fine. Just keep playing good defense. Keep rebounding the ball well. Well, what happened was, after a period of time, the defense slipped. Their effort on the glass slipped. And before you knew it, it was a 20-point lead, and then the hole was too big. Can this team stay locked in to the little things if the shot is not falling? I will say this, though. One thing I do like about the draw, the times came out. BYU is playing very early on Thursday. It's the second start tip of the tournament on Thursday. I like that for Ali Khalifa and his fasting with the Ramadan, is that he'll eat in the morning. He's already been through this a couple times, the 2 early games in the Big 12. He's got the routine down a little bit. I think that's helpful for Khalifa.
He's Matt Baiamonte. I'm Mitch Harper. Taking our final time out of the show. On the other side, we'll give some of our predictions and also break down more of this BYU-Duquesne matchup as the Cougars get ready for the big dance. It's all right here on Cougar Nation.
Make sure you have the KSL News Radio app to stream BYU games wherever you go. You can also get breaking news alerts and podcast your favorite KSL show, all on one app for KSL News Radio.
This Thursday, however, the app will not be working for stream. Just FYI, Cougar fans, only 102.7 FM and 1160 AM is where you can hear BYU versus Duquesne. So just a heads up, only on the radio dial, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM. And, of course, you can watch the game on True TV. And we'll have coverage inside the arena for BYU and Duquesne on KSLSports.com. So tip-off 10:40 a.m. on Thursday, Matt. One of the things that stood out from last week's loss against Texas Tech, slow start once again for BYU. It's been kind of a theme with this team outside of the UCF win in the Big 12 tournament. Is it time to make a change up the starting lineup, ruffle the deck a little bit as they go into the NCAA tournament?
No, the only thing that really needs to be changed, and I don't think it will be, and this is a nitpick of the highest nits being picked, the change needs to be Coach Pope's substitutions pattern. I don't like how to start games, he'll wait to get Jackson Robinson in almost always 5 minutes. Yep. There's never like after 2 minutes it's going south, you're down 7-0. There's never a quick timeout to get new people in. It's always just status quo through the first timeout, and then Jackson will come in after the first media timeout. That needs to be evaluated. If it's a 5-0 start and things are rolling and someone's not playing good D or not making shots, I'm going to Richie, I'm going to Jackson, I'm going to the guys who have been consistent all year long. Secondly, too, you have to ride the hot hand. We have seen him make that mistake a couple times this year. He did it with Trevin Nell when he was banging threes earlier in the season in conference play, and then he did it in the loss. Jackson Robinson was making threes, and I know he said, hey, he had 4 fouls. Sometimes you just got to let players play. Yep. If someone picks up 2 fouls, if, let's say, Dallin Hall gets 2 fouls with 14 minutes to go in the first half, you need to trust Dallin Hall to stay in the game. Like, at some point, you got to let your best players play through these things. You can't micromanage every little situation. So that's what I want to see. Hopefully, none of those scenarios play out, and you can just ride your rotations like normal. But if you do need to make a tweak, I want to see it from Coach Pope in terms of how he subs players in and out.
I like that take, and this is a big opportunity for Mark Pope. Only his second NCAA tournament appearance. It would have been his third had COVID not wiped away the 2020 bracket. But how does he handle managing a March Madness game? Because we haven't coached in one of these settings, but I can only imagine it's a lot more tense. It's a bigger pressure cooker than anything they maybe see. And
winner go home.
And yeah, exactly. And the thing is that I'm fascinated to see how BYU performs in this tournament, knowing that they've been a battle-tested team. I just feel like that is a new dynamic that is so different than years past for BYU. Because, I'll tell you, when years gone by, when I would see a team in BYU's quadrant or their region, I think, oh man, avoid that team at all costs because they've never seen anything like that. I look at this bracket, even UConn, who is dang good, and I think I tentatively have them picked to win it all, but I feel
you got a repeat coming in.
I feel like I need to change that. I don't know, but the thing is that I just feel like BYU has seen the big physical teams, the athletic squads, and they're in this spot. They've managed that. They've played a ton of quad 1, quad 2 teams, and they're here. They were the highest rated 5 seed team. They technically get a 6. I just want to see what impact that has to where, when they get into these games in March Madness, how they stay the course, stay calm, because they've seen it all, and nothing should faze them in this bracket.
Last chance to get in a call, Cougar Nation, if you want to chime in. How confident are you that this team can get to the Sweet 16? 801-575-8255. 815-575. 801-575-TALK to jump on here before the opening round on Thursday for BYU. Devil's advocate to that, though, Mitch. This team is experienced and they've been through a lot. However, the guys who have been around for a while have had no success in tournaments. None in the WCC tournament and none in the Big 12 tournament.
They did win that Vegas showdown, if you want to call that like a bracket.
But there's no pressure in that. That's
right.
Basically a preseason fun Thanksgiving trip down to Vegas. So it's not like they can call upon previous experience of we took down Gonzaga and won a WCC, or in this tournament we had this adversity. I mean, maybe a little bit in the UCF win, but not a lot of postseason success for this group of BYU players, which I hope changes coming up this weekend.
It's going to be a fun game, and do you feel like it's a BYU blowout? Do you feel like BYU just rolls with ease to a win?
No.
I feel like they win, but I think it's going to come down to the under 4 media timeout second half, and Duquesne's still going to be in striking distance.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be close. Look, these tournament games, and ever since the portal and NIL a little bit, it feels like these mid-major teams have gotten stronger, and there's just a lot of experience with these groups of teams that are able to retain their players. And because roster turnover, and this is something I like about BYU, because roster turnover is so high at the top level where you're constantly bringing in new guys are going to the league, doing whatever, there's less continuity at the top, which makes some of these lower teams that have some continuity thrive. Look, that's why we saw teams like FAU last year go to the Final Four. We've seen some of these top teams struggle because there's no continuity. I like that for BYU, that they have played together for now their second year. They have been through some battles, just haven't had the postseason success, but I like that. But Duquesne, look, you don't get into this thing by accident. You have to be playing good basketball, and I think in this opening round, anything can go. You just want to survive and advance this opening round, get your feet wet a little bit, get the jitters out, and then in that round of 32, you can kind of get back to who you are.
If BYU wins a game on Thursday against Duquesne, 10:40 a.m. tip here on KSL News Radio, are they one of the great all-time BYU teams, getting at least one win in the dance?
No. Definitively no. Sweet 16, yes.
Okay.
You feel like one win's enough to put great on there?
Maybe I just set such a low bar on this NCAA tournament. Maybe I'm just
win
I got
against
PTSD.
Duquesne, and you're willing to say great?
Look,
you got to get to the Sweet 16.
I just feel like, man, you get that win on Thursday, that feels special. They're just so hard to come by,
They're
Matt.
a favorite. They're almost a double-digit favorite.
Man, but these games are hard. They are so difficult. You think Big 12 games are hard. This is going to be the toughest game in BYU's lives.
No.
It is. I'm telling you, Matt, this is going to be so challenging.
You're giving me some Coach Pope speak here. This will be the hardest thing
you've
ever been through.
It is. BYU Duquesne is going to be the game of the century for BYU.
Give me a break.
March Madness games just take on such a huge life, man. But with all that said, and I say that because it's transfer portal season too, with all that said, BYU's getting it done on Thursday.
I like BYU to win as well. And here, I'm giving you a bonus prediction. I like them to beat Illinois. Give me the Sweet 16, baby. Let's go, Cougs.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have you covered in Omaha. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to you later this week.